The drowning song of Jenny Greenteeth. There is a part of the River Wyre, deep in the Lancashire wilds, where the banks slump low and the water stagnates, thick with duckweed and rot. The locals call it Deadman's Pool, and no soul with any sense goes near it after sundown, for that is where Jenny Greenteeth waits. Old as the river's oldest stone, Jenny is a demon of the water, green-skinned and ale-slick, with hair like black weeds and teeth like broken glass. She slinks just beneath the duckweed, her fingers long and clawed, her voice soft and sweet as a mother's lullaby. She hungers, they say, for the small and the weak, children too curious to listen, and elders too frail to flee. The villagers of Overmere knew the warnings well. Mothers stitched tiny charms into their children's coats, and the old folks carried sprigs of rowan wood when they ventured near the river. Still, accidents happened. A little boy chasing his ball. An old man stooping for a drink, gone, and only ripples left behind. It was said Jenny could reach out with hands as cold as the grave and pull a grown man into the water without a sound. One summer, when the drought had cracked the fields and the river shrank to a lazy trickle, the villagers grew complacent. "She's sleeping," said the blacksmith, spitting into the dust. "No harm in it now." Children played by the water's edge, their laughter piping bright over the fields. Among them was Margaret Pye, a stubborn girl with hair the colour of buttercups and a mouth too quick for her own good. Her grandmother had warned her about Jenny. "Keep away from the river, Maggie girl, or she'll comb her black hair with your bones." But Maggie only laughed. She had seen no demons, only slow water and lily pads and dragonflies buzzing in the heat. On the day it happened, the air was heavy with storm. Maggie wandered alone down to Deadman's Pool, poking at the green scum with a stick, daring herself closer. The water, strangely, seemed clearer than usual. She could almost see down through the murk to the soft brown mud below. And there, just beneath the surface, floated something pale, a flower perhaps, or a hand. Maggie leaned closer. The duckweed parted slightly and she glimpsed a face, a woman's face, lovely and terrible. Skin green as pond algae, hair fanned out like river grass, eyes a brilliant, sickly yellow. The face smiled. Before Maggie could even scream, two hands shot up, faster than a striking pike. They seized her ankles and yanked her forward with monstrous strength. She toppled headfirst into the water, the duckweed closing over her with a soft plop. Her stick floated away on the ripples. The village searched, of course. They dragged the river for days. They found only her shoes, tangled in the roots of a willow tree. The old folks shook their heads, grim but not surprised. A few of them swore they heard laughter, soft and gurgling, on the breeze that night. And ever after, when the mist rolled in low over Deadman's Pool, the villagers said Jenny was combing her hair with little Maggie's fingers, humming a song of drowning and despair. So it is even now, if you walk the banks of the Wyre at twilight, you might hear a sweet voice calling your name, inviting you closer. If you do, remember this: do not answer, do not look, and whatever you do, stay away from the water. For Jenny Greenteeth is always hungry. The Spriggan's curse of Penwith long ago, when the land of Cornwall was wilder and the sea winds howled like wolves over the moors, there stood a broken ring of stones atop the cliffs of West Penwith. They called the place Deadman's Cairn, and even the boldest hunters would not go there after dark, for it was said the cairn was guarded by a Spriggan, a stunted, twisted creature with a face like a rotted apple and limbs as gnarled as driftwood. Grotesque and ancient, the Spriggan was not merely a watchman of treasure buried beneath the stones. It was a trickster and a thief, a creature of pure spite. Many claim to have seen it. A small hunched figure lurking in the mists, its eyes glinting like black gems, its laugh a sound that turned warm blood to ice. Travelers who strayed from the path at night often vanished, drawn by whispers into bogs and crags where no trail could be found again. Worse still, the Spriggan was known to slip into homes when the moon was dark. Mothers clutched their babes close, for if the Spriggan set its sights on a child, it would steal away the living and leave behind a wretched changeling, a hollow-eyed creature that wailed and sickened and never grew. The folk of nearby Boslow feared the cairn and feared the Spriggan more. One autumn, when the bracken turned gold and the nights grew cruelly cold, a man named Elias Trenworth came to Boslow. He was a mason by trade, proud and stubborn, and laughed at talk of Spriggans and spirits. He needed stone for his hearth, and the cairn, crumbling and ancient, offered all he could want. "The dead don't mind," he said, shouldering his pickaxe. The villagers begged him to leave the cairn be, but Elias was not a man to be cowed by old wives' tales. So at first light, he climbed the windswept hill to Deadman's cairn. The mist clung to the heather, and the crows watched silently from the hedgerows. Elias set to work, prying loose the ancient stones. As he lifted the first slab, a rush of cold air burst from the earth, and a low chuckle echoed out of the hollow. Elias shrugged it off, superstition, but as he descended the hill, stone packed in his cart, he noticed the road behind him seemed longer than before. The sky darkened unnaturally, though it was only midday. The crows took flight, cawing in wild alarm. When he reached his cottage that evening, he found the door hanging ajar. Inside, his infant son, red-cheeked and healthy that morning, now lay stiff and silent in his crib. The baby that remained had skin the color of ashes and eyes that gleamed with a hateful intelligence. A changeling, Elias roared in grief and rage, but the damage was done. That night, as he wept before the fire, the wind outside grew shrill and cruel, and he saw, standing atop the hill, silhouetted against the sliver of a dying moon, a small, misshapen figure, laughing and capering atop his stolen stones. From that night onward, Elias Penwith was a broken man. His wife fled with what remained of their kin. His house rotted under the salt and rain, and the villagers whispered that on stormy nights you could still hear Elias' cries mixing with the Spriggans' malicious laughter across the moors. The cairn itself, though shattered, never gave up its secrets. Many treasures were said to lie buried still, swords of the old kings, rings of fairy gold, but no soul dared touch the place again. And they say, even now, if you walk too near Deadman's cairn on a misty night, a small, grotesque shape may follow you, unseen at first, whispering lies, leading you step by step toward the cliffs, where the rocks are sharp and the sea below is hungrier than any beast. For in West Penwith, the Spriggans still walk, and they have long memories. The Grindylow of Blackmere Bog in the grey wastes between Yorkshire and Lancashire, where the land sank and sighed underfoot, there lay a place few dared tread, Blackmere Bog. A soupy tangle of mist, reeds, and cold black water, it was a forgotten wound in the earth, whispered about in every hearthside tale. They said it was bottomless in places, that things moved under the muck that no man had ever named. But worst of all was the Grindylow. It was an old fear, older than the stones stacked in the village walls, older even than the tumbled ruins hidden in the woods beyond. A creature of sinew and spite, the Grindylow was said to have fingers like bindweed and arms as long as a fisherman's net. It lurked in the pools, lured children with strange sounds, the bleating of lambs, the cries of lost friends, and when the little feet came too near, it would snatch them under, never to return. Elsie Mott knew the stories well enough. Her own grandmother had told them, voice dropping low as the fire crackled, warning her to mind the bog. But Elsie, quick of wit and quick of tongue, had no patience for warnings. "They just don't want us having a bit of adventure," she said, tossing her tangled hair and rolling her eyes at the frightened looks of her friends. She was the kind of child who climbed tallest trees, chased wild ponies on the moor, and splashed heedless through puddles deep enough to swallow a dog. She laughed at the villagers' tales, daring herself ever closer to the bog's whispering edge. Then came the spring flood, the season when the Blackmere swelled like a wounded beast, and the fog rolled thicker than milk. The sheep broke from their pens one morning, scattering across the fields and toward the bog. Elsie's father, red-faced and weary, sent her with a stern look. "Mind your steps, girl. Stay out the lowland." But the sheep bleated pitifully from the mist-shrouded marsh, and Elsie, heart brimming with pride and mischief, set out. The morning sun was a weak smudge behind the heavy fog. Every step squelched and sucked at her boots. Reeds taller than a man brushed against her cheeks. Yet she pressed on, calling softly to the sheep, her voice sounding hollow in the wet air. Then she heard it, a splash and a child's giggle. Elsie froze. No other children were near the bog. She turned and peered through the fog, And there, across a stretch of dark water, she saw the outline of a girl, small, with hair just like hers, beckoning silently. Elsie frowned. "Who are you?" she called. The figure only smiled and slipped behind a curtain of reeds. Curiosity, that ancient hunter, tugged at Elsie's heart. Without thinking, she stepped toward the water, onto a patch of land that seemed firm. But wasn't. A soft creak, a coldness rising. Suddenly, the ground gave way and Elsie stumbled, her boots filling with freezing water. She gasped, tried to pull free, but then she felt it. Slick fingers coiling around her ankles, thin as twine but strong as iron. Out of the water rose a horror, a head, bald and bloated, with skin like green-gray leather and eyes that gleamed yellow in the gloom. Its mouth gaped wide, revealing teeth filed to cruel points, and it hissed her name, though she had never spoken it aloud. "Elsie!" she screamed, kicking, thrashing, but it only laughed, a bubbling, gurgling sound like water rushing into an empty well. It dragged her down into the bog's icy throat. In that final, desperate moment, as Elsie sank, she saw them, the faces of the lost, children frozen in the mud, their hair waving like weeds, their hands reaching but never free. Some she recognized from old portraits in the village. Others, even older, wore strange clothes of another time. And deep below them all, something older still slumbered, a vast shadow with many eyes, stirring as the Grindylow fed it once more. When Elsie did not return, the villagers searched, at first with lanterns and dogs, later with prayers and tears. They found her bonnet snagged on a thorn bush at the edge of the bog, but nothing more. After that, they built a stone wall around the Blackmere and hammered iron nails into the posts, for iron, they said, held evil at bay. Every spring, they left offerings. Bits of bread, a ribbon, sometimes a toy, small things, to keep the Grindylow sleeping. Yet on misty mornings, when the sheep stray too close to the water and a strange singing floats over the reeds, the villagers remember. And they tell their children, "Mind your steps, or the Grindylow will have you too."